Hi everybody, this is Tim at Comic Carnival, and I'm here with Mathew Klickstein, and he is the author of You Are Obsolete from Aftershock Comics. And the trade collection just came out, and he is here in our store signing it and talking about it, and he's going to talk about it with you right now. Matthew, can you tell us a little bit about You Are Obsolete?
Yes, it's a 5-part series that came out through Aftershock from September through December of this last year. Actually, the last one came out in January, right there. And the trade, as you just said, just came out a couple weeks ago. It was supposed to come out a little earlier, but obviously some large-scale world events occurred and disrupted a lot of different things, including that. But it did, at long last, come out. We're very proud of it. And actually, what's interesting in the lacuna between the termination of the series when it ended on number 5 and the trade coming out with everything with the lockdown and COVID and so forth, there was a lot in the book that turned out to be fairly prescient, unfortunately, and was a little bit prophetic in that way, dealing with our connections to screens and call outs about Netflix and addiction to cell phones and devices and how these things are affecting our communication, especially younger people. So it's been really fascinating to talk to people like yourself about those kinds of connections and how and why that happened. All I can say is I was a child of Ray Bradbury, Aldous Huxley, George Orwell, and Twilight Zone, and they talked about it first.
Yeah, that's cool. And can you tell us a little bit about the characters that are in it?
Yes, we have Lila Wilton is the main character. I don't necessarily want to call her a protagonist. She's more of an anti-protagonist. She's a very nuanced, complicated person. A young former journalist on the rise. She got into some difficulty with some vague cancel culture type stuff, and is at a very dark, difficult time in her life. And is invited through a mysterious series of circumstances to a small Eastern European island to cover a story that she's not really that familiar with or aware of, but basically they promise her, and she thinks this will be a way for her to kind of regain her reputation in the media world. And once she gets there, she basically befalls this very strange kind of Wicker Man type of land, this very strange island that also is clearly run by the children of the village that she's in, and starts to discover what's going on, and that there's some very bleak, tenebrous scenarios afoot, and she's both trying to figure out what's happening while also covering the story, so to speak, because she just inherently is a writer, is a journalist, and as scared and worried as she is, she also wants to try to actually be productive and get something going. That's how her mind works. We also start to learn that she has some difficulty with various substances and has some other problems that obviously may have influenced some of the reasons that she got into some trouble early on. And that too is sort of shaking up her sense of reality and her mental state. So it really starts to delve deeper into the psychological aspects of the story. And again, I was very influenced by a lot of horror films from the 60s and 70s, more creepy, more awkward and strange than kind of jump out
Village
monsters.
of the Damned and her, at least
Definitely,
in her haircut.
Definitely Village of the Damned, yeah. And Children of the Corn, it's been compared to, obviously, again, Wicker Man. And for later stuff, I was influenced greatly by a lot of the early Black Mirror episodes, especially the episode 15 Million Merits,
So good.
which I still think is one of the best episodes of television that's come out in the last 10 years. And also my greatest nightmare, and something that very much scares me, and I kind of wanted to deal with a lot of the same kind of concerns and issues about how, again, we relate to technology and screens and how it relates to us and affects our mental state, affects our sense of self, affects our communication. And again, we're obviously seeing that a lot right now while we're in more or less lockdown and having to communicate and deal with each other much more through screens and that kind of mediation. So frightening times with that kind of stuff, and we deal with it a lot in the book. So that's You Are Obsolete.
Can we talk a little bit about the art? Because
Sure, please. That obviously comes up constantly. I'm so proud of the art that we got in there. Evgeny did an absolutely fantastic job. He's a rising star for good reason. Lauren Affey, who did the coloring, was absolutely a dream. And They were great to work with. I was just very impressed, and I have to, again, as I always make sure to do. Not only am I grateful for the artists themselves, Lauren and Evgeny in particular, and Andy Clark, who did the covers, and obviously he's already a huge icon in the field. A lot of my comic book friends, this is my first series, so when I told people that Andy Clark was going to do my covers, they were like, "What? Oh my God, that's not fair." So, and he obviously did an astounding job, as he always does. But it was great working with them. Aftershock, it is creator-driven art, creator-driven comics, which is great. I really got to impose my own vision on this, which is fantastic. But they got the artists together, and I basically worked with my editors, who then would kind of relay everything to the artists, and we would sort of play this sort of ping-pong game, funnily enough, over email and everything, Mr. Electronics. And but it was great, and the one thing I want to keep saying, because it's so important, not only is Evgeny, who's the main artist on this, obviously a genius in every possible way, he was absurdly fast. I could not believe how quick he would. Really? There was only a few times where I would see some of the sketches and want a few little tweaks or changes, because he usually got it on his first try. Mm-hmm. But I mean, sometimes I would submit stuff to my editor, Christina Harrington, who was also fantastic. And I mean, we would be finishing our conversation, and already I was getting the changes back. I mean, he was doing in like minutes, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, wow. the guy's a machine. It was really, really incredible. And he really did. I mean, I was quite specific. I'm coming a lot from the film and television world. So, and again, this was my first series, but I really wrote it like I was thinking of a film. So I was sort of describing how I would storyboard it if it were a film. And so I was very specific about the angles and the colors and how I wanted it to look and what was in the background and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And Evgeny would produce it exactly how I want every time. And because it was my first series, and I wasn't used to working in this medium, it was a little unnerving at first. I mean, it really was like Evgeny was reading my mind and just printing out what it was I was envisioning, which it was extremely refreshing and great in a lot of ways, but it was a little unnerving at first. I was like, how does this guy know exactly how I want this to look?
That's cool.
This was very exciting, and I definitely want to keep working in comics.
That's great. Well, since we're talking about that, what do you have in the pipes for the future?
Yeah, I have a few other projects coming out, some actually quite soon. I have my first children's book. It's actually middle grade readers, some more ages 8 to 12, kind of between children's book and a YA novel, some more like Captain Underpants or Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Mm-hmm. It's called The Kids of Whitney Junior High Take Over the World. It's coming out through Schiffer Publishing. It's actually based on a real band that exists that I've worked with for over 20 years of singer-songwriters with developmental disabilities in a rock band. The real band is The Kids of Whitney High, but I aged them down, kind of like Muppet Baby style, so that it's more accessible for kids. And it's a really fun book. The artwork's really beautiful by this comics creator in Baltimore, Mikey Bracco. Some people might know him as Spaghetti Kiss. And on the back cover of the book, it's a beautiful hardcover. You can download 3 free actual Kids of Whitney High songs with your phone. There's some more tech for you. And a few other things. Some of the profits are going to a nonprofit in LA that's been hit hard by COVID. That works with people with disabilities as well. We're hoping it'll be a series. I'm talking with some people maybe about doing it as an animated series. We were going to have some live events with the band and everything for the release of the book next month. Obviously, that's not going to happen now, but we're trying to put together some virtual stuff, so be on the lookout for that. Kids of Whitney Junior High Take Over the World. I'm working on a new pop culture history project with SiriusXM. It'll be an audio documentary. I can't really talk about the subject, but let's just say it's very close to home in a big way, and I'm very, very excited about it. I just started doing a lot of the interviews for that remotely, obviously, and it'll be kind of like it'll be like a Talking Heads documentary, except all audio, and there'll be music and quotes from films and things like that, and it is definitely a subject that I think people watching this will be very interested in. A couple of other things, an audiobook that I'm working on with a woman in LA, Beth Lapidus, who created something called Uncabaret and helped to really get the alternative comedy scene going back in the 90s. And a few other things that I'm always kind of picking at and whatnot. People can find out more about these projects, especially Kids of Whitney Junior High Take Over the World, at my website, MathewKlickstein.com. That is Matthew with 1 T. And it's KlickStein.com. Plenty of stuff there, as well as some of my clips and videos and whatever else people might want to check out. And so I'm really glad to be able to go to these different stores like Comic Carnival. I'm glad you guys are open and finding safe ways of staying open and having things like this happen, because we need comic book shops, we need record stores, we need coffee shops, we need art house cinemas We need, dare I say, bookstores. They are community hubs. And even though I wasn't into comics as a kid, I still hung out at the comic book shops, and I learned a lot from being there. So it's important that we keep these going and we keep the businesses going as best we can, safely, but still happening.
Yeah, from your mouth to Stanley's ears. Thank you very much, Matthew. I sure appreciate you coming in today. See you around the comic shop.